So, some news has come out for the most recent volume for My Hero Academia coming out around December 3rd, and there's some stuff that I really want to talk about. We get a confirmation of what the cover 442 is going to look like, as well as some confirmation of what's going to actually be in the final volume. No speculation here, just cold, hard facts. As well as some more speculation for what we got with the new facts that we got. So, there's a lot that I really want to talk about, so let's dive right into it. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga, and I'm here to talk to you about the most recent developments in the most recent volume coming out of My Hero Academia Volume 42. And yes, I still have an echo, but I'm going to try and fix it very soon, but this is some information that I really want to bring up, so I'm going to talk about it even though this is not my full setup right now. And what I want to talk about is based off a previous video that I released last week, where I was talking about making predictions for what's going to be changed in the final volume of My Hero Academia. And some of my predictions did come true, but some of them are still up in the air. So I'm going to just quickly go over what I addressed in the previous video, as well as give like a little bit more in-depth thoughts about what I'm thinking is going to be in this most recent volume based off what the new information that we have. And just to break down the video, you should still probably watch it as well as subscribe to my YouTube channel. But the gist of the video is that the final volume of My Hero Academia will have 3 changes to it. That it will have changes with adding more extra content, which is like the extra volume content that you may see in between pages in the volumes themselves. For example, pages like this one right here that has information about characters or just added information that Horikoshi wanted to put in the volumes. And then I was thinking about that they would potentially make changes within chapters, such as switching pages around or even expanding certain panels within the chapters. And then finally, just adding more pages to the actual chapters themselves. And it's the first 2 that I really want to talk about because those are the ones that we got pretty much confirmation is going to be the case in the final volume of My Hero Academia. But thanks to certain creators that I follow on Twitter, they pretty much explained that for at the very least that there's going to be a minimum of 38 additional pages that are going to be added to the epilogue or the final chapter of My Hero Academia, which potentially leaves the additional 22 to 20 pages which will be dedicated to extra content. And that's something that is very interesting, and that's something that I kind of predicted in the previous video, but I think I want to go a little bit more into it. And like I said in the previous video, I talked about the volume extras, and you can watch that video to kind of get a better understanding on what I think will be within those volume extras. But you can also just go back and watch some of my previous videos where I was covering the volume extras that came out in Japan so that you can be prepared for when they came out in English. So most likely the volume extras that we are going to be getting in volume 42 are going to be very similar to the ones from the previous volumes, but for what we're getting with the epilogue, that is something a little bit more interesting. Because in the previous video, I did address that potentially we'll be getting to see more of the individuals of Class 1A and where they're going and what they're doing after that 8-year time skip. But I want to add a little bit more to that, and I think that there are a few ways that these extra pages can really add to the ending of My Hero Academia. And the thing that is most likely to be within those additional 38 pages is seeing where everyone in Class 1A is. Because in the final volume, we got to see glimpses of certain characters and what they're doing in their adult life. We get to see what Uraraka is doing. We get to see what Shoji is doing. As well as we get small tidbits of smaller characters such as Kirishima, Tokoyami, and for the most part, we see what everyone looks like in the final double page spread at the end of the chapter. However, a few things could happen. We could get a little bit more sprinklings of them in the actual chapter proper, where we may get a better understanding of where characters such as Sarah, where they're going, Ojiro, what he's doing, probably what Jiro is doing, and probably her involvement in being a hero as well as music. Maybe we'll even get more about Mineta as well. I think that is most likely going to be the direction that these extra 38 pages are going to be coming from, but there could be more in it as well.
You serious?
With the additional pages, we could get fleshing out of potentially Deku and Uraraka's relationship, because the final few chapters kind of hints at the idea that both Uraraka as well as Deku may be dating, but we also could get confirmation of that within the final 38 pages that are going to be added to the epilogue chapters. Or we could just get a focus on other characters outside of Class 1A. We may get confirmation of when Dobby actually died. We may get even confirmation of what is actually happening with Spinner and Compress after the fact. We may even see what's going on with Endeavor, as well as who the top 10 heroes are, and how they may not all necessarily be heroes, but civilians as well. Maybe we'll flesh out Hawks as well and how he's working with the Hero Commission. There is a lot that can be fleshed out and shown within those 38 pages, even if you dedicate one single page to all of the characters that played crucial roles in the final war. Maybe we may get confirmation that Tetsu, as well as Kendo are together. Even more confirmation of maybe some other pairings of other students, as well as potentially Kamui Woods and Mount Lady. There's a lot that can be done with these final 38 pages. However, there's something that I want to point out. Because from what the information I have seen, it's saying that the final chapter is going to be getting these 38 pages. And I know for the fact that these 38 pages of additional epilogue is most likely going to go to the final chapter. However, what if these 38 pages of epilogue is actually sprinkled between the entire epilogue as a whole? Because we need to remember that the epilogue starts at chapter 424. And that from 424 to 430 is the entirety of the epilogue. So while people may be saying that it will be added to the final chapter, it's still very possible that these pages are going to be added to every epilogue chapter, including chapter 424 and beyond. Because the epilogue as a whole is a total of 7 chapters, with the final 2 chapters being longer than 15 pages. And if we do a little bit of dirty math, if we get 38 additional pages to the epilogue and divide that among the 7 chapters in the epilogue, each chapter will get around 5 additional pages. And while some chapters may need that additional 5 pages, other chapters may not. So we cannot rule out the idea that the epilogue pages can apply to the entirety of the epilogue and not just the final chapter. Because while typically in shonen, the final chapter is the epilogue, My Hero Academia has shown to buck that trend by using the entirety of the final volume as an epilogue. So, riddle me this, how many mangas do you know use the final volume in its entirety as an epilogue? I can't really think of a lot, but I can only think of like one other series. But yeah, overall, whether or not the 38 pages is added to the final chapter or the entire epilogue as a whole, this is a very good sign for My Hero Academia's final volume. Because it means that there is very much an incentive to buy this volume because of just how much more content we're going to be getting in it. Either with extra volume content that may talk a little bit more about Horikoshi's writing process, or even when it comes to how he wrote the story and just adding more information about the characters that kind of ties everything together, to just having more My Hero Academia content to talk about. So, whenever the volume comes out, which is going to be within a few weeks, I will try to cover all of the extra content as well as the additions being made to the final volume of My Hero Academia when it comes to the chapter pages. I may not do a full-blown review, but if they are added to the final chapter, I may have to do an actual revision for it. So, look forward to that whenever that comes out. Also, with all the news about the volume itself, I forgot to actually talk about the biggest news, which is the volume cover. And the reason why I want to cover it now and not save it for the actual video where I cover all of this in its entirety is because this is a very unique cover. And that is that this cover is actually a homage to My Hero Academia's first volume cover. And as you can see on the screen with both of these covers, there are a lot of similarities. For instance, you have the single individual child in the foreground, which in the original volume, it's Deku, but in this one, it's Dai. Deku, Dai, similarities there. But then even in the background, you see that in the volume 1, you have All Might smiling with his arms like this. But in volume 42, it's Deku, but you see that unlike with All Might in his hero costume, Deku is in the t-shirt that he fought Tomoe Shigaraki in, which kind of portrays a sort of humanity that Deku embodies compared to All Might being a hero. And the same can be said about the people in the background in volume 1 versus volume 42. where in volume 1 you just have a whole bunch of heroes, pro heroes that are sort of like in the background and are in a different color tone, which you could make an argument is that you have All Might casting a shadow on these other pro heroes to the point where you really cannot distinguish who is who clearly within that background image. But compare that to volume 42, where everyone in the background is a character that we've seen and know because they all come from class A. And that unlike with that, they aren't in a shade of red, but they are clearly visible, which could be symbolic of the fact that they play just as an important role in society and are not being casted under someone's shadow by them being clearly seen in this volume 42 cover. So I really like that there's just a lot of like symbolism when it comes to this volume cover, which is very prominent within the final chapter of My Hero Academia, chapter 430, which also has a whole bunch of callbacks to the initial chapter of My Hero Academia, chapter 1. So it just shows that the entirety of this series is just a full circle, beginning to end, ending the same way that it began, but in a better world. So yeah, I really like this cover. It's very simplistic, but it has a whole lot of symbolic weight to it. So yeah, this is something that I forgot to put in the video proper, so I'm going to say it now and hopefully you'll be able to see it in the video. All right, back to whatever I was saying at first. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to bring up in this video. This is going to be sort of like a follow-up to the previous video, but let me ask you this. What do you think is going to be going on in the final volume of My Hero Academia when it comes to these additional 38 pages? Leave your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!